1960s, the martial arts community in the United States was dominated by the classical stylists. Each classical stylist seemed to take great pride in the fact that they were identified by their limitations. For the Japanese karateka, the punch became the overwhelming identification. In Taekwondo, the practitioners liked to say that they were the best in the world at kicking. The judoka was well known for the grappling range. Each practitioner seemed to have this identification with their specific range that they applied. Ask a traditional Japanese karateka how to perform a reverse punch, and he can literally take an hour showing you how to put the hand in the right position, twist the hips, focus the knuckles, perform the kiai. In these classical martial arts, there is only one way that you can perform the right technique. In the Tao, Bruce Lee tells us that we should seek the truth in combat, experience and master the truth at each range. Jeet Kune Do was developed as the antithesis to the classical method. In Jeet Kune Do, it's important to get out and kick the kicker, box the boxer, grapple the grappler. Each experience represents a partial truth in what we call the totality of the combat arena. Lee says it's important that once we master an art, to forget the carrier of the truth. Forget that art, drop it, and move along. He says that we should repose in the nothing. When you can use no art as your art, that is, no way as your way, you become Jeet Kune Do. In the 20 years or so since the death of Bruce Lee, his martial art of Jeet Kune Do has been variously referred to as Bruce Lee's method of non-classical Kung Fu, as scientific street fighting, or as Jun Fan Jeet Kune Do. In this series of videotapes by Panther Productions, I'll be demonstrating my own expression of Jeet Kune Do, which I refer to as the Jun Fan kickboxing. My own instructor was Joe Louis, voted by Karate Illustrated magazine as the greatest karate fighter of all time. And in fact, when he was a student of Bruce Lee's, learning the system of Jeet Kune Do, it was not uncommon for Bruce Lee to refer to Joe as the greatest fighter of his time. Some of the theories that I talk about here include those from the Tao, from Bruce Lee's personal notes, from working with a number of students that have worked with Bruce Lee, and my own research into the field of martial arts. My name is Jerry Beasley, and I look forward to working with you in this series of videotapes. Let's begin with our Jeet Kune Do on guard position. In the on guard position, we want to do three things. We want to first of all deny access to our target. We want to prepare our weapons and prepare for our mobility. Here's how we do that. On our stance, we want to turn our body about 45 degrees away from the opponent. The knees are bent slightly, the reverse heel is off the floor. You might notice that the front knee and the reverse knee, although bent, are not bent down too low. Also, the front foot, the toes of the front foot are turned about 45 degrees away from the target. The toes of the front foot are also about in the same line as the heel of the reverse foot. Now, it's not mandatory that you have to have this exact specific position. Remember, in Jeet Kune Do, we use no way as the only way. Sometimes my stance may be wider, sometimes my stance may be shorter. But as we speak here on the camera, it's very easy to have the exact stance that we'd want to use. At some distance, it's very easy to have your hands down. When you get in fairly close to your opponent, you need to have your hands back up for protection. Remember that, one, deny access to the targets. Secondly, prepare your weapons for the confrontation. The hands are placed, the right hand out in front, elbow guarding the ribs. The reverse hand is placed in front of the chin. Now, Bruce Lee used the straight blast technique, the punching technique, and as a result, was not that concerned with the hand being back like a typical boxer would use. So our hands are placed down in front. That's not to say they have to be there, but this is our typical stance that we use. And also notice that the reverse heel is off the floor, ready for that mobility that we need in Jeet Kune Do. This time I'd like to introduce my partner, Ian Marshall. Ian is a 4th degree black belt in Tang Soo Do and American Karate. He teaches at Tech Martial Arts in Blacksburg, Virginia. Ian, if you would, demonstrate the on-guard position. And as we take our position, remember it's important to understand that spatial awareness, that separation between two fighters. At this range, I'm free to keep my hands down or put my hands up, just depending on whatever I intend to do here. But we are basically at kicking range. The minute we close in about toe-to-toe here, we have to start thinking about our hands coming up like this, because at this point we are in the punching, trapping range. And so as we take this stance, remember, this on-guard position facilitates that quick motion in and quick motion out. It also denies access to the targets, and it prepares our weapons for attack. Now, let me conclude by saying that the stance can be used in any number of different situations. That is to say that this is our basic starting position, but sometimes you'll find that your feet are a little closer, or that you have your left side out in front. In Jeet Kune Do, certainly the strong side is favored, but after 30 years of practice, both sides tend to be equally strong. So that's not to say that you can't use your left lead as well as your right lead for this. And certainly in our kickboxing applications, you'll find the need for both of them. And so once again, to review, the knees are bent, the feet are turned away from the opponent. Deny access by turning your body, shifting away, keeping your hands up, and having that springy type of motion so that you can blast in at the opponent or move back quickly out of the way. Our next section, we're going to look at the fundamentals of the basic kicks and punches in Jun Fan kickboxing. The front kick is used from our on-guard position. As we prepare for the kicking, we have to shift our weight back. As we shift our weight back, the foot is now brought into position so that it's easy to kick. The knee comes up at the same time that the foot is going out. In Jeet Kune Do, we want to be non-telegraphic. We don't want to pull the knee up, snap it out, and then pull it down in the typical karate or taekwondo fashion. Rather, we want to put both elements together. As the knee is coming up, the foot is going out as well. Okay? And the basic straight or front kick works like this. The knee comes up, we snap the kick and we pull it back quickly. Snap and pull it back quickly. Snap and pull it back quickly. You're hitting with both the ball of the foot, or if you have on hard shoes, you can actually hit with your toe. And it hurts a lot to get hit with a hard toe in a fighting situation. Okay, so the knee comes up, we snap the kick and we put it back. Snap the kick and put it back. It's also important to recognize that there are two types of speed involved here. First is arrival speed. We have to get to the target quickly. We also have a second type of speed, which we call withdrawal speed. Once we hit the target, we have to get the foot back into the floor as fast as possible. By leaving the kick out, we run the risk of having our opponent either strike the leg or capture the leg. So we want to make sure that we're pulling the leg back quickly as we do the kick. Now, I'm going to ask Ian to demonstrate the traditional type of front kick with the classical method. Ian, if you'll just take your stance, okay, and bring the knee up in a chamber position, kick out, pull it back, and sit it down. Now do that full speed. Chamber, kick, pull back, and once more. Chamber, kick, and pull back. Now you can see that although that's spectacular and certainly beautiful in terms of kata, it does not have the elements of simplicity. It certainly is telegraphic. So Ian, what we're going to do this time, instead of bringing the knee up with the foot in, we're going to bring the knee up and start moving out at the same time. Let's try that. Ready? Up and kick. Okay, and pull it back quickly. Remember the withdrawal speed as you do that. Ready? Kick. And kick. Good stamp. Good. And kick. And once more, kick. Okay, now notice that as he prepares this kick, his hands stay up. He's not telegraphing the technique by pulling the hands back and shooting the kick out. But rather, this front kick is used just to nail the opponent as quickly as possible. Thanks, Ian. There are other interpretations of this basic front kick. If we want to increase our power, we have to put the hip into the technique. In other words, as the foot comes up, the kick, we have to put the hip in. In order to increase the power of the kick, we can bring the hip into the position. We do that by bringing the knee up, and now as the foot starts going to the target, we shoot the hip forward like that. Increases our power considerably. Up and thrust and back. Up and thrust and back. Once more, the knee comes up as the foot is going up, as the hip is coming out. Up and thrust and back. We can also hit with the bottom of the heel by putting the foot out like that. We can hit with the top of the foot for a groin type of kick by letting the foot come down like that as well. Let me get Ian back in here, and I'm going to show the application of those Jeet Kune Do techniques. First of all, the front kick would work like this. We can kick at the knee, a fast snapping kick. We can kick into the groin. A lot of times when we demonstrate this groin kick, we use what's called a scoop kick, the top of the instep, kicking up and back like that. Just a fast little technique. Now, it's very hard to block a technique. This moving quickly is non-telegraphic, is deceptive. For any skill that we perform, we can increase the speed, increase the power, or increase the deceptiveness of the technique. In this case, by kicking low, we've increased the speed. By pushing the hip in, we've increased the power. And also, by being non-telegraphic, it becomes much more deceptive. We can also kick to the body. We could take the same front kick and sometimes kick with the bottom of the heel. We can thrust with the bottom of the heel as we kick as well. Okay, so this front kick becomes a very powerful item as we kick to the body, to the groin, to the leg. So far, we've used the front kick off the front side, but we can also increase our power for the front kick by taking it to the reverse side. In this case, I would kick with my left, or if my right side is dominant, I'll place my right side reverse like this. Sometimes, remember, in the rigors of competition or the spontaneity of self-defense, you can't be sure that your right side is forward or that your left side is forward. So we just have to kick with what we have. If your strong side is the right and it happens to be reversed, that's simply a reverse front kick. It's used like this. Once again, we bring the knee up without chambering the foot. The knee comes up at the same time the foot is going out. We pull it back quickly and down. Up and down. Now, we can increase power, and we get that power from the hips moving in by twisting a slight pivot off the front foot here. Okay, so as we come up, we can actually reach with that kick. Imagine your opponent trying to get away from you, and you're reaching after them with that front kick. Or perhaps the opponent feels very comfortable because they're at a distance that they don't feel they can be hit. By pushing the hips in, we can increase our distance with that kick. Once again, this front thrust kick comes from the reverse side. Bring the knee up, we thrust it out, pull it back, and sit it down. Up and out, back and down, up and out, back and down. And notice that the left foot pivots slightly to facilitate the hips moving in, which gives me more thrusting power with this front kick. Up and kick, pull it back. Up and kick, pull it back. And that's what we call the reverse leg front kick. Let's then look at both the front kick and the reverse front kick in training applications. Now, as we train, you can learn a certain bit of information from what we call lecture demonstration. That is, as I talk to you or demonstrate the techniques. But the next level up would be dramatization, in which you actually perform the technique yourself. Still a higher form of learning, that is, you'll get more information as you perform it, is through focus pad drills. This is what we call simulated experience. In the simulated experience, I'll have my partner, or I'll be the coach perhaps, holding the focus pad and allowing my opponent to strike it. This is how we'll do that. Ian, if you'll come in, I'll take the focus pad and place it on the hand. I'll have Ian take a fighting position, and we're just going to work with the front snap kick. Ready, and 1 and 2. Go ahead and hit a little harder. 3 and 4. All right, now notice he's using the ball of the foot as he kicks in, and it's important to pull it back quickly. Sometimes I'll have him kick, and I'll just kind of snap back at him just to make sure that he's pulling the foot back quickly. Ready, kick and kick. Okay, we can also kick from the reverse side if you'll change positions here. And this will be the front thrusting kick from the reverse side. Ready, and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And now as we perform those kicks in this simulated type of experience, it's important that we maintain a good posture, because as you practice, that's the way you're going to actually perform the technique. And now, if we are moving forward and back and practicing the kick, we have to introduce a form of stepping. This is just a step and slide. Okay? The step and slide will work like this. We'll take the foot out slightly, the front foot slightly, slide the reverse foot up, snap the kick, and then step back. Okay? Once again, on the step and slide, we're going to take a little step out, slide the reverse foot up, snap the kick, and then step back. We can also, without having that initial motion out, we can simply slide the reverse foot up, snap the kick, and then pull back. We want to be able to slide in and kick and slide back out of the way. I want to be able to slide in and kick and slide back out of the way. This is so that we can hit our opponent and then be away from the opponent so the opponent can't strike back. We slide up and kick, and we slide back out of the way. And now, Ian, let's try that technique using the focus pad. So you're just going to step and slide. Move back just a little. Okay, you're going to step out, slide up, kick, step back quickly out of the way. Ready, step up, kick, and back. 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 Okay, that's fine. So as we train these techniques for the focus pad drills, there are any number of different drills we could put together. This simply demonstrates one of the basics that we would use in preparing the front kick, the snap kick, and the reverse front kick. Next, we'll look at some of the sparring applications for the front kick. You'll find that in actual self-defense or in sparring, the front kick becomes one of the most important kicks that you can master and perform. Ian, if I can use you for a minute. This time we're just going to move around lightly, and I'm just going to demonstrate how the front kick is used in application. As we move around, I can just fire a little snapping kick. Now that's just to gauge the distance, just to get the opponent's attention. And snap out another little kick. I can throw a front thrusting kick if I have more room, like that. I want to make sure that I'm getting my foot down. And again, it's just snapping the kick. Now if this were a self-defense situation and the opponent was coming in, bam! I have the front kick very effectively and immediate for my self-defense routine. And while the front kick is perhaps the easiest kick to perform, it's the hook kick that is most often used in Jeet Kune Do. Most systems refer to this as a round kick. It kicks around. But Bruce Lee looked at the round kick, and since it was in the same direction as the hooking punch, referred to it as the hook kick. The hook kick, once again, wants to maintain that element of being non-chambered and non-telegraphic. Most traditional karate systems, we would bring it up, pivot, snap the kick out, and then return to the floor like that. In Jeet Kune Do, we want to get out of those two steps of the chamber, the return, and then back to the floor. So we put it into one motion. And the technique simply comes up and hits and back like that, and hits and back like that. So in slow speed, it'll look like this. We want to bring the knee up. Now the knee can be used to deflect an attack. The knee can be used to point your weapon in the direction that you intend to hit. And as we bring the knee up, we're again starting the foot out. We don't want to pull it up and chamber it. Rather, we're pulling the knee up as the foot is going out. So we're increasing our speed. Instead of holding that foot until we get the knee ready, we're now letting the foot go out at the same time that the knee is coming up. So as the knee comes up, the foot is going out and pull back. You can hit with the ball of the foot, which I prefer because it gives a good strong penetration. It's like hitting with a fist as opposed to a slap. The slap being the top of the instep. A lot of people like to hit with the top of the instep, and that's functional too. But if most of your techniques are kept waist level or lower, like the Jeet Kune Do kicking techniques, then I think it's advantageous to kick with the ball of the foot. So the knee comes up, we snap the kick and pull it down. Snap the kick and pull it down, snap the kick and pull it down. These are the fundamentals for the Jun Fan kickboxing. Ian, if I can get you in here. If you give me a right lead stance. As we prepare to strike the opponent, again, the knee is coming up, and we want to kind of stay under this guard. The opponent's going to have his hands up typically, and it's a little harder to see underneath the elbows like that. So our kick approaches low and then comes in and hits. Just up and hits like that. Up and hits like that. Up and strikes and pulls back. Now we can easily kick down toward the leg or the knee for this, or of course for the groin. And if you're hitting with the ball of the foot, it's a very, very functional kick for you to use. Also, we can do more of a chamber in order to get the foot up higher and kick around so that we can actually kick higher for the technique. As you can see, if you're going to kick that high, it opens up your low line to counterattack. For that reason, Bruce Lee suggested that the kicks be kept below the waist. So we're just going to snap the kick out like that and pull it back, out like that and pull it back. Notice that there's no chambering technique. There's no forced motion of pulling up, kicking, and pulling back. It's just a snapping action like that. While the front kick is functional for going straight in, sometimes the opponent will have his hand out in front, so I really can't use a front kick. If that takes place, I'm going to use the angle kick around like this. Now you can throw the angle kick or the angling round or hook kick in close to the body like that by pulling your knee in. So even if I'm in tight to my opponent, my knee comes in and I can snap the kick out like that. Snap the kick out like that. Let's turn Ian around right here so you can see the actual kick. From this position, the knee comes up and hits and pulls down. Up and hits and pulls down. Up and hits and pulls down. And it's very easy to penetrate an opponent's offense by sliding this kick right in between. So even if he positions his hands really close like that, I'm still sneaking right in like that. Now remember that if I were to go to the groin, it becomes almost impossible to block this technique. It snaps so quickly that it's very easy to penetrate the opponent's offense without the opponent being able to do anything about it. The hook kick is a very, very functional technique in Jeet Kune Do and one that we use quite often. Here's the 6 slows. In order to achieve some mobility with the hook kick, we again apply the step and slide method. I step up, snap the kick, and step back. Step up, snap the kick, and step back. I can also, to increase my distance as I move in, step out slightly, then step out, then back. So I step out, kick, and then pull back. Or, once again, step up, slide, kick, and back. Now, let's bring Ian in, and we're going to look at how to prepare the hook kick for actual contact. At this time, Ian, let me have you demonstrate, first of all, the more traditional Tang Soo Do style of round kick. If you would, snap it up here high. Okay, again, and again, and again. And now you can notice that as Ian performs the traditional, the classical method of the round kick, first of all, he's using it in the context of the sport, using the slap or the top of the instep to hit with. He's also chambering. Notice the chamber here, chamber. Okay, now as he chambers it up like this, it telegraphs the technique to the opponent. Okay, so as he begins to chamber, the opponent can move in quickly and snap a counter technique. Okay, so as he chambers, he then snaps and pulls back into his chamber position. Now the one advantage to pulling back into a chambered position, I'll demonstrate that, okay, is that you have multiple techniques that you can throw there. Okay, and if you'll just demonstrate a double. Okay, so there's an advantage to that. But the disadvantage as he throws the kick is that I can shoot right under that with my front kick very easily and complete an excellent self-defense technique. Okay, so as we perform these kicks, working back and forth, we just want him to make some contact and back. We can also, using the focus pad drill, let him slide up and kick and slide back. Ian, if you'll step back. And now slide up and kick and pull back, slide up and kick and pull back. Now let's change that into the Jeet Kune Do format using those principles of being non-telegraphic. Okay, so if you just try the Jeet Kune Do style of kick using the ball of the foot and back, okay, that's better. And you want a little more snap as the heel comes back. That's it. And emphasize pulling down at the same time. Okay, the disadvantage of doing the classical kick is that you get used to chambering and leaving that foot up. You chamber and you kick and your foot stays up. On the Jeet Kune Do kick, we're kicking and we're pulling back. So notice how the hip rocks up and back as we do the technique. Okay? And if you're used to snapping out, it's harder to pull back. Although we realize that as you kick the technique, okay, that's when your opponent is going to try to counter by striking your leg. So you want to make sure that you get it back quicker. Let's try it a couple more times. Ready? Kick. That's it. Pull it back quickly. Kick. And pull the hips down and kick. And kick. Good. All right, now another way to practice with this particular kick is to get an opponent, a partner here, and just work back and forth. So maybe I'll slide in and do the kick, then he slides in, does the kick, then I slide in, and I slide in. We can work back and forth like that, just using our Jeet Kune Do style of hook kick. Now let's take a look at the inverted hook kick. We just completed the hook kick that comes around like this to kick, and sometimes we'll find that we don't have an opening to this side, so we have to invert or twist the kick around to the inside. So on this kick, where the knee comes up in the same position, only the foot goes inward like that, snapping, inward and snapping, inward and snapping. Now I'm hitting with, once again, the ball of the foot. I want that penetration by pulling the toes back and hitting with the ball of the foot, or again, if I have on good strong shoes, don't even need to be concerned about pulling those toes back. I'll just hit with the toe of the shoe. But I bring my knee up, I twist it around and pull it back. Knee comes up, twist it around and pull it back, just like that. Again, at fast speed, we're going back like this. Now, so far, we have the front kick, the hook kick, and the inverted hook kick. Ian, if I can use you, I'll demonstrate how that's used. Once again, the front kick, if you have the opening straight in, if you are denied access to that target, you can then hook the kick around. It's essentially the same kick, only it moves from a different angle to the opponent. In some cases, we don't have access to that target, or let's say that our opponent switched sides. Give me a left lead. Okay, so that our hook kick would not actually hit anything that would be desirable for self-defense. So I'm just going to invert the kick, I'm just going to twist it around, and now I'm ready to hit. Just like that. Throwing the kick, just snapping, being non-telegraphic as I throw the kick out. Now, this can be very, very functional for a groin type of kick because my opponent can't even really see that coming. It's going to be so quick as I hit my opponent. Full speed. Ian, let's get you in here, and we're going to try the focus pad a few times. All right, now, Ian, if you'll take a left lead, just because I'm happen to be turned this way. And now, as you do the kick, let me just demonstrate, first of all, your basic karate style of kicking. Ready? In 1. Let's just see how you would hit it. Now, hit it hard. 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, now notice that he rotates the hips really a lot, and that's, again, that chambering mechanism for his particular style. When we cut that out, we get it down to a more essential kick, something that's a little more simple and direct. And as he does that, also, a couple of times he was hitting with the top of the instep. You can use the top of the instep sometime. But in this case, again, if we're kicking low, we hit with the ball of the foot, stick it right into the opponent. So, Ian, let's try it this time. Up and kick, okay, and nice and quick, and okay, and pull it back quickly. And try not to twist your hands down. A lot of systems, the hands will come down for technique. You don't want to give it away by dropping the hands down. So 1, good, and 2, and pull it back. Remember, withdrawal speed, you want to get it back quickly. 3, good, 4, and 5. All right, that's looking pretty good there. Now, as Ian, just stay right here for a minute, if you would. A few other points that you should be aware of on throwing this inverted kick. If we do put more hip into it, we can get more penetration. So if we're just doing a snapping kick like that, we're going to get some power. But if we'll take that foot and twist it in, we can get more penetration. Also, we can vary the contact point. Instead of using the ball of the foot, I'm going to use the top of the instep, and here's why. Sometimes I'll be working an opponent, and I'll get the opponent to move their head down. When they do that, I'll take that instep, kick, and kick right back like that. Now that'll just throw their head straight up in the air, and as they do that, I'm ready to follow through with additional techniques. So once again, the basic inverted hook comes up and strikes, up and strikes. If I want to get more power, I twist it in just like that, or if I want to go high to the head, moving in close like that, and if his head is forward, I'll just come back and hit with the top of the instep, just like that. Now we're going to put the kick into an actual application of sparring. As we move back and forth, Ian, you're just going to throw a inverted hook kick, and I'll just exchange it back and forth. There's mine, and you throw one. And notice that we're just stepping back and forth, just like that, as we kick. We can change positions if we wanted to, and I'll throw one, in through the kick, and I'll move in, throw the kick back and forth like that. And now, let me mention that the inverted hook kick is an excellent kick for changing direction. Ian, come right here for a second. So I can put it into a combination kick in which I am faking in one direction and switching back, or what is sometimes referred to as a progressive indirect attack, which I'm actually changing the rhythm, the timing and the distance. So I'll start the kick and then move back. Start the kick and then move back. And it's much harder to focus on an inverted kick because you're used to seeing the technique come up, such as the hook kick, and it just switches for you in midair. The inverted hook kick is a very functional technique that we use in the Jun Fan kickboxing. It's often been brought out that Bruce Lee borrowed from many different styles in developing his kicking techniques. From the Northern Shaolin, he had a number of kicking skills. He worked with Jun Rhee to develop some of his kicks. He taught Chuck Norris, and he worked with one of his students, Joe Louis. Joe Louis was a world kickboxing champion, national champion. He was voted the greatest karate fighter of all time. And in fact, he was my mentor and instructor in this form of Jun Fan kickboxing. But from his work with these various individuals, he developed a very high level with his sidekick. I want to demonstrate some of the parameters, some of the principles, and some of the functions of the sidekick at this time. First of all, if we go into our stance, our on-guard position, we'll find that the sidekick actually works better when we happen to be a little more sideways, hence the word sidekick. Now, in the traditional karate type of styles, they'll bring the foot up, chamber, snap the kick out, pull it back, hitting with the blade or the side of the foot. Bruce Lee felt that it was more functional to hit with the bottom of the heel, and in fact, it is more functional to do so. Also, we want to be non-chambering, so we don't want to do any techniques such as pull the foot back in or arch the foot up too high as we do the technique. The side kick, like the other kicks, is designed to go from our stance so that it can't be easily picked up. It has to be deceptive. We can increase our speed by moving. We can increase our power by increasing the arc of the kick. And deceptiveness we increase by being non-telegraphic. So the side kick works like this. We bring the foot up, and as the foot is coming up, as the knee is coming up, the foot is going out as well, and down. Up and down like that. Up and down like that. Now we can snap the kick by pulling it back like this, pulling it back like that. Okay? Or we can lock the kick out as we're throwing more power. If you do lock the kick out, remember that your opponent can damage your leg as they attempt a leg destruction there. Okay, so the foot comes up, we hit, pull back. Foot comes up at the same time that the knee is coming up in position, and you strike out and pull back. Now, on this particular line, keep in mind that I want to avoid pulling my foot behind the line of attack being a straight line from my body to my intended target. And so while the front kick goes on the line of attack, the hook kick comes behind the line of attack, the inverted hook comes inside the line of attack, and the side kick stays on the line of attack. If I pull my side kick behind my line of attack, like the hook kick, I'm going to end up with kind of a side hook kick. I won't get a hook kick, I won't get a side kick. So make sure that as you're practicing, that sometimes you can place your hand out in front of you if you want to. Make sure that this foot doesn't come behind that line of attack, but rather stays on the line of attack. You'll get more power there. So as the foot comes up, we kick, pull it back, and sit it down. Snap it, pull it back, and sit it down. Now, working with Joe Louis, Bruce Lee developed a step-through side kick. Now, obviously, the step-through side kick that I'm going to demonstrate is going to be considerably more telegraphic. But sometimes, in order to increase our power, we have to give up some other function. In this case, we won't be quite as deceptive, because you'll notice as I do the kick, I'm actually banging the floor in order to pull off and get more power. On the step-through side kick, I take a step out, step behind, then pulling the foot up, thrust out like that. Many of you have no doubt seen some of the backyard tapes produced by Bruce Lee in which he's kicking the focus pad. And you'll notice that he's actually taking a big step out and then following through with the kick. That's how you get maximum power in this step-through side kick. Once again, we step out. Now, you can step straight out, but then you have to step behind. So I would suggest that you step out at a slight angle. This facilitates the foot coming behind. The knee is then brought up, as the foot is coming out, and then we pull the foot down, and then we can shuffle back into position. To throw the kick, we're going to step out and hit, pull back. We're going to step out and hit and pull back. And if you want really maximum power, then you'll really take a big step and forget about the chambering part of it. Just thrust the kick out like that. You'll get maximum power for the kick. Ian, let's make a comparison of the traditional type of side kick along with the Jikundo side kick. If you'll demonstrate the more traditional Japanese side kick. 1, notice the chamber and the hitting with the blade of the foot. 2, that's it, and 3. And you can see that when he chambers, it'd be very easy to stop that kick because he's telegraphing the technique. Also, as he starts to pull his leg back in the chamber, he's again holding in position so that it'd be easy to destruct the foot as well. So let's see if we can't cut out those two items, the chamber going up and the chamber coming back, and hitting with the bottom of the heel. That's a little better. 1 and 2, pull it back quickly, pull back quickly. 3. Now remember, when you are chambering, when you're chambering the technique, you get used to sitting the hips up. And if you're not used to pulling the hips down, it takes an extra second or 2. Let's try 1 or 2 more and see if you can't get your head back to vertical position. And 2 and 3. All right, so for the side kick, we can easily move back and forth like that. And then, of course, we want to put it in a sparring type of situation for our training in which I'll just step forward and hit, and then Ian will step in and hit, and I'll move in and hit, and back and forth just like that. Now notice that we're doing the step and slide with our side kick the same way. And the block or defense, we just kind of come down for that. And that should give you a good impression of how to perform the Jikundo side kick. For the most part, the oblique kick is going to be unique to the Jikundo system. Bruce Lee designed this oblique kick to capture his opponent and also to immobilize the kicks that his opponent was throwing. From our on-guard position, we just bring the foot up very much like a front kick, but turn it in an oblique direction. So the kick comes up and snaps just like that. Up and snaps just like that. And we're hitting with this part of the foot, the inner part of the sole. So we come up and hit and back like that. Up and hit and back. Now you can use this oblique kick to come up and drop down on the opponent, or simply to immobilize temporarily the kick by snapping it out like that. It also causes your opponent to be aggravated with those little chipping type of techniques that are hitting in the leg. It causes them to be off balance and they have to think about the attacks from the lower sector of the body. So we just kind of come up and snap with a kick just like that. Now the knee is brought up very much like the front kick, only we turn the foot out, which rotates the knee out. We come up and hit and pull back. What you don't want to do is turn your foot and try to hit like this. Okay? You want to avoid that. But by getting this snap, you just come up and snap it out just like that as you're doing the oblique kick. Now, a lot of times the oblique kick is used in motion, so as we're stepping back and forth, we come up and hit and move back. Step up, hit, and move back in that process. And Ian, if you'll come in and we'll try this on a focus pad. Now remember, as you're training at home, you want to go through the stepping, the actual dramatization that is trying the techniques perhaps in the mirror or by yourself, and then see if you can't get a partner that can come in with a focus pad. On this kick, since it's intended to be a low kick, I'll just go down to one knee and let Ian try it a few times. Ready? And 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Okay, and you can work back and forth with that. Another good way to do that, go ahead and take a left lead, is I'll throw out the kick and then let my partner throw the kick. Then I'll throw the kick and my partner throw the kick. Just like that. Now, you'll notice that once you develop some expertise with this particular kick, you can actually throw it up into the body. I can actually come up with a kick and using the bottom of my heel, stick it right into my opponent like that. Can you feel how that would hurt, Ian? Sure. Okay. Or I can bring it up and drive down like that. I can bring this kick up and drive down. I can switch positions and still throw the kick in. By bringing the kick in and curving out with the bottom of the heel, I can use a very powerful oblique kick in that manner as well. Ultimately, the Junfan method should not be dependent on one or two kicks, but rather those kicks put together when necessary. This time I'm going to have Ian come out, and we're just going to move around some. I'll be throwing the kicks. Ian's just going to block as we move around. I'm going to throw some oblique kicks, some hook kicks, some front kicks. I'm going to change position as we move around, just to show you how those work. Gee, Ian, it makes it too easy for me when you're not doing anything. The actual translation of Jeet Kune Do means the way of the intercepting fist. Certainly within the context of the art, the hand techniques are of primary concern. There are 5 that we're going to work on in this series. First of all is the straight lead. Using our on-guard posture, our hands go up, and it's this fist out in front that is the primary weapon of the Jeet Kune Do fighter. The elbows are kept inside to protect the ribs. The hand goes straight out. The shoulder comes up as we punch. Now, Bruce Lee was interested in having the vertical fist. You would actually strike with the bottom 3 knuckles as you go out. And as the hand prepares, there's a slight drop to emphasize those knuckles going in. So once again, as the hand comes out, it's coming down and dropping up like that. You're also pushing the shoulder in for additional power, and also the hip moving in slightly gives you that power. Okay, so from the on-guard position, the straight lead typically works like this. We punch out and hit and pull it back. Punch out and hit and pull it back. Punch out and hit and pull it back. Now, the return path can also be changed somewhat. In other words, we can punch out and pull it back in. Now, that gives us a little more power with the shoulder and the hip. We're pushing the shoulder out, pushing the hip in like this as we strike with the technique. We can also increase our power by a slight step with the forward foot. So we're moving out and hitting it back, hitting it back, and hitting it back. Now this technique is designed to be very deceptive as it's moving straight forward against the opponent. And also we're utilizing a maximum speed by increasing the hip, the shoulder, going straight out, and by pulling it back in off of that straight line, we're getting back a delivery, a return that's even faster still. And so the fundamental straight punch comes out and back, out and back, out and back. There are some variations on the straight punch. Here they are. First of all, we can punch straight out and back. Now, by pulling straight back, we're actually facilitating a reverse punch, okay, as opposed to putting all of our power into this one technique and getting the twisting motion. In this case, by pulling straight back, we're ready to punch with a second punch like that, or third, for a blast or a blitzing type of technique. Also, we can turn the hand over. The typical boxer likes to take the hand and torque it over and turn and pull back, using those same principles of guarding the ribs, keeping the shoulder up for protection, and pulling it back down, out and back like that. And also, we can snap, getting more of a boxer's type of jab in on the technique. Okay, so we went from our full power vertical punch to our turnover punch, okay, to even a more powerful pulling of the punch and a fast, speedy snapping of the punch. Anytime that you pick up the punching techniques, you have to have the mobility, the footwork. So at this time, we'll simply step forward. Again, using that step and slide out as we punch. You want to try to time it so that at the same time that the fist is touching the target, the foot should be going against the floor. So we're hitting like this, hitting like that. Okay, now that gives us our body weight. Our whole body is moving into the technique as we strike. So instead of just punching with our hand, we're now using our whole body weight to increase the momentum and speed and power for this straight lead punch. And this is the primary weapon in a lot of the Jeet Kune Do fighting type of techniques. After you've had the opportunity to try these, perhaps in a mirror, perhaps just standing and trying the techniques, it's time to get a focus pad. You have to hit something to get a feel for the actual power in the technique. Ian? First of all, Ian, let's demonstrate the traditional, more of the karate or taekwondo or kung fu type of straight punch. You'd come from the hip and you punch out like that. 1 and 2. Okay, now, the problems with this type of a punch are, of course, that the body is wide open. The hand is actually here protecting the hip, and in fact it should be up to protect the face. And the advantage to this is since you're covering a longer distance, you're actually increasing your power somewhat. Now let's go up to the Jeet Kune Do type of punch, okay, which is going to come straight out. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, and you want to be hitting with these bottom 3 knuckles, and you're also dropping the hand as you're punching out like that. 1 and 2, that's it. Okay, make sure that the shoulder stays up and the elbow guards the hip there. Okay, 1 and 2. All right, now Ian, to get more power, remember we can step forward with the foot. Your stance is a little too wide right now, a little more karate-like. You want to have a little more mobile stance. So 1, that's it. 2 and 3 and 4. All right. Now, once you have the fundamentals, the focus pad drill there, let's look at how we would actually apply that vertical punch. First of all, against an opponent, if you could, zone out and strike straight in. That's exactly the way you want to do it, right here. Anytime you hit to the base of the chin, there's a good chance you're going to get a knockout. So we're just going to punch straight out like that. If we're going to the body, we need to drop our center of gravity somewhat to hit with this. And this can still be a very powerful punch. Ideally, if you're going to use the vertical punch and you've already moved in against your opponent, you're in position to where you're driving. And this punch can be used in tight like this to push your opponent back out of the way so that you can then follow in with punches. Let me demonstrate that one more time. Okay, so if his punch is out, I'll just intercept and move in. And once I'm in tight like this, by dropping the fist, I'm actually pushing my opponent out of the way so that I could follow through with additional punches. That gives us that space that we need in order to make the technique work. In addition to that interpretation of the vertical punch, remember that the straight lead can be used as a boxer's jab, okay, by turning it over or by stepping over and getting even more power with it. Be sure that you keep the left hand up for protection. Now in Jeet Kune Do, again, if you're using the blasting type of techniques, your hands are going to stay more out in front, like this as you strike. If you're going into more of a boxing jab, you need to get this left hand back for protection. You do not want to be in position which you're hitting with the forward hand and forgetting about the reverse. The problem is that a person throwing any type of a hook will catch you wide open as you do that. So as we perform the technique, we want to make sure that our hand is up for protection as we do that. Now, one way to practice that is moving back and forth. And if you'll throw in with a jab, and I'll just kind of deflect it like that, and I'll throw it back, and we're just going to move back and forth just like this. Okay, not actually making contact, but just using that hand up to check just like that. Just getting used to our opponent working back and forth like that. Let's go back to that theme of using no way as the only way. In this case, we're going to use the cross, the left cross. If our right side is out in front, use the left cross. Typically, if you know how to do the straight lead, you simply do it off the reverse side. The punch comes straight out and pulls straight back, straight out and back. In some cases, I want to keep this hand up for a rally or a blitz or a blast, a combination of techniques thrown at full speed. In other cases, I want to try for more power. If I'm trying for more power, I might use my strong side and place it on the reverse like this. In this case, I'm actually getting more power because I'm covering greater distance. Greater distance, more power. It takes longer to get there, but when it gets there, it's going to have more power on it. Now, in order to throw this either vertical or turnover punch, you can throw either one, works like this. From the hand, from our fighting position, we first of all start the hand out. Weapon first is the principle we're using here. You start the weapon at the target. Okay, starting the weapon at the target, you then twist your knee in, pull your shoulder forward, and now you're going to sit down, dropping your hips. Now, the reason we're doing that is to get our entire body weight for the technique. Okay, so we're going to get our power from the shoulder, from this hip moving in, and also from the whole body weight dropping down. So we have a 1, 2, and 3 positions for power there. Okay, so here we go again. The punch is going to go straight out, and the shoulder is going to come up, the knee drops down, and you're going to torque and just sit on the punch directly out in front of you, the fist, the shoulder, all covering, and now we're exposed here, so we want to quickly pull it back and generate back into our position. Okay, so we're going to punch and pull back, punch and pull back, punch and pull back. Now, whether this hand is open and closed isn't really too important. Typically, if you're going to throw a right cross, you'll preface it with a punch and a follow-through. 1, 2, like that. A 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 2. But this is perhaps the most powerful hand skill that you can use, the reverse punch. Using your power side, you're stepping out, using the shoulder, the hip, dropping the weight just at the point of impact, dropping your weight down, getting more power, and then pulling back quickly. You want to make sure that you don't raise the shoulder, which lessens your ability to throw power. Sometimes a beginner will actually bring the shoulder up, which telegraphs the technique, and then punch straight out like that. That's what you don't want to do. What you want to do is keep that shoulder in tight as your hand is moving forward to the target. Now notice that this technique is the same as that technique. See? You're throwing the same lead hand punch off the reverse side. It comes across the body as you throw the technique. So as we set it up, we're just punching straight out. Whether you're turning it over or using the vertical fist just depends on who you're trying to hit or the end result there. Okay? I prefer the turnover punch myself if I'm going to throw a reverse punch or a right cross. Same technique off the front side or off the reverse side. Same technique like that. Only by throwing it off the reverse side, you can double your power with the technique. As we do the technique, we can also put that footwork back into it. And so typically, we want to move forward and hit and step back. Forward and hit and step back. Forward and hit and step back. Or if we do this in combination with the straight lead, we go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 in that manner as we perform the cross. For comparison, let's look at the Jiu-Jitsu cross along with the karate style of cross. Ian, you'll come on in here, and if you just sit up with a left lead, we're going to throw that reverse punch. Notice it starts a lot of times by the hip. Some practitioners come up to the chest for that. Ready? 1, and pull it back fast, and 2, and 3. Now, a lot of times the classical stylists will lock that position. Now, by locking the position, the person actually is in a more stable stance. Unfortunately, if they miss, or if that one punch doesn't do everything it's supposed to do, they're in a very awkward position. In other words, if he punches out and locks and holds, and ki, ready, 1, okay, and lock it. Okay, now, see his body is wide open to counter here. So that's the disadvantage of that wide, deep stance. You can actually get more power. In fact, the karate people are well known for being able to break boards and bricks and people if they stand there. But if your target moves on you, you have to go to another system. And that's where the Jeet Kune Do comes into play. Now, by bringing the hand up, and let's try, notice the stance is much tighter in. Ready? 1, and stamp it. 2, pull it back quickly. 3, and 4, and 5. And notice that he's very close, so it's going to be hard to hit him in the process of his performance of the individual skill. And this is the way that we would practice with a focus pad on the reverse punch. A lot of times we'll put that and have the coach hold up the focus pad and we'll try a jab cross combination or any number of combinations with the right cross. And in fact, a good one is the hook and the cross and such as that. And hopefully we'll get a chance to show those later on. At this time, let's just demonstrate how you would use the right cross. If I've already set the person up by making him react to one technique, just give me a reaction there, okay, then that opens the lower line to follow through for a punch. Or a lot of times I'll make contact with one and then be ready to follow through with the other technique like that. So 1 and 2. And this punch turned over is going to give me maximum power as I use my Jun Fan kickboxing technique. A third line of attack for the Jeet Kune Do hand techniques includes the back fist, or sometimes called the back knuckle. You're actually hitting with the back of the knuckles here. In traditional karate, we were first taught to step forward, to put the body in position, and then follow through with the back knuckle. You can see that that's very telegraphic. In fact, who couldn't see it coming? Now, in respect to the karate practitioners, you're again picking up more power. By pulling the body into it, getting set, and striking, you can generate maximum power. But sometimes maximum power isn't exactly what we want. We have to have that speed. Remember, there are 3 primary attributes in increasing our ability to throw these techniques. We can increase the speed, the power, and the deceptiveness. In this case, by not chambering the technique and telegraphing the technique, it becomes much more deceptive. You don't know exactly what we're doing here. Also, we utilize weapon first. Weapon first means you start the weapon before you move the body. In the traditional arts or classical arts, we're taught to move the body, then move the weapon. In Jeet Kune Do, we move the weapon first, then the body. So this becomes non-telegraphic, weapon first, simple and direct. The left hand is kept up for protection. The body is in an on-guard mobile position. The hands are up, and the back hand goes out and back. Now, what happens is, if you're looking straight ahead, the body, the opponent actually picks up on the body. They see this big object moving, and they lose sight of the little fist. So watch what happens. Here is, first of all, using the body first. You can see it, see? The body comes in, and then there's the back fist. Now watch with the weapon first for the Jeet Kune Do. See, by the time you see it, hopefully, it's already hit you. And the back fist comes straight out and pulls back like that. Back fist out and pulls straight back. Once more, out and back and out and back. Now you can increase some power by having a greater arc, but you can also get that power by pushing the shoulder in and the hip in and stepping as you do the technique. And that's the way we perform the Jeet Kune Do back fist. At this time, let's introduce Ian again, and we're going to use the focus pad as part of our training. The coach will hold the focus pad up, and then, Ian, first of all, let's demonstrate that traditional, the karate style. 1, and you can see what he's doing there. 2, and that's a full arc, but it's a very powerful technique. Now, you can get that same power by utilizing the body weight forward and straightening out that back fist. Let's try the Jeet Kune Do style. 1, and 2, and 3. And 4. Okay, so once again, the defense, the hands are up, and the hand is coming straight in to strike the opponent. Now, in application, give me a right lead if you would. The back fist can be used both to strike to immobilize that forward hand, which sets up a series of techniques, or it can be used to go straight in against the opponent. Come right here, Ian. So as we do the back fist, rather than telegraph the technique by coming up like this, and he can obviously put his hand out, what I'm going to do is try to shoot the hand straight out like that. See, so the hand comes straight out, weapon first, becomes very deceptive as I strike out. Okay, so as he's in position and I'm stepping forward, I just move straight out like that for the back fist. Now, if you do pull your back fist back in this position, you've really increased your speed. You've used up your energy and your technique and your position for maximum speed. But when your hand comes back like this, you're not defensively in a strong position. So, if I wanted to throw it in combination, I need to keep it without that last little turn for the technique. But you can see how the back fist can be a very functional technique in Jeet Kune Do. Let's look now at the hook punch. The hook punch is used to generate that force in more of a circular fashion around to the opponent. There are several ways to throw a hook punch, of course. In Jeet Kune Do, we want to try to generate a technique that's going to be simple and direct, yet get maximum power and efficiency from the strike. Here's what we do. The left hand is, of course, up for protection. The right fist, we're hitting with the hand across like this, comes out and back. We're keeping the elbow down, again, to protect the ribs. So a simple form of hook goes across and back like that, making a slight circle. So you're hitting and pulling it back in, hitting and pulling it back in. Now, as we increase the arc, here's the arc, as we increase the arc, we can also increase the force of the technique. And if you're going to come up as high as 90 degrees, it's really advantageous to start pulling the elbow up. Now, what happens when you do that? When you do pull the elbow up for the hook punch, you're now exposing the ribs to the kick. So that's the disadvantage. The advantage is more power. Disadvantage is, of course, you lose some of your defense. So for that reason, the hook is generally thrown in Jeet Kune Do around like this, across. Now we can increase our speed by pushing the shoulder into it, by stepping in. In other words, we're getting to our target quicker by stepping into it. And we can also increase our power by doing those same things. The shoulder twisting and torquing, the hip, and then stepping with the body weight. So instead of just hitting with our arm, we now have our whole body weight going into the technique. Across, like that. The hook comes out like that. Now typically, when throwing the hook, we will put it in a combination. A combination might include a jab, a cross, and a hook. If you're using it in that type of combination, a lot of times we'll step back for power in the hooking technique. In other words, you're pulling it in. In many cases, you'll step out and hook. You can step forward with your footwork and do the hook as well. So the hook starts in tight, protecting the body. It could be a straight punch, or it could hook back, or it could be a back fist. You can work the back fist and the hook in unison, like that. Okay? So the hook comes up, strikes it back, and strikes it back. And that's the way we do the hook punch for the Jeet Kune Do. In order to increase our effectiveness, we want to actually strike something. So, Ian, let's get that focus pad out. We'll try the hook against the focus pad. Take your stance, and we're just going to come up and hook across. 1 and 2. All right, now notice that as Ian is throwing, he's going for the full arc across and hitting and pulling back. And again, the disadvantage is that body's going to be open, but you can actually generate more force. If you watch any tapes on Mike Tyson or some of the better boxers, they're actually throwing their whole body as they initiate a hook type of technique. It can be a maximum power technique. In Jeet Kune Do, it can be both a power technique, but primarily it's used as a fast little snapping type of technique. Ian, let's keep that elbow down a little and try the hook. 1 and 2, and 3, and 4. And again, you can see there's a difference in power there. Now, in order to pick up more power, he would need to start stepping out with the hip, torquing the hip, pushing the shoulder into it. Let's try that a couple times. 1, that's it, 2, and 3. That's a little bit better as we do the Jeet-Kune-Do type of hook. Now, the hook is used a lot of times in combination with other techniques. Ian, come right here. Give me a left lead. Typically, in boxing, the jab, cross, hook combination is used. Now, Bruce Lee actually watched the boxing techniques over a period of time and incorporated the boxing footwork, the mobility, and much of the hand techniques. It's often said that he would watch tapes of Muhammad Ali in a mirror, which would make Muhammad Ali, instead of left hand lead, he'd be a right lead, a Jeet-Kune-Do, strong side forward. So Bruce Lee was able to pick up on that. The combinations typically thrown in the boxing include a jab, cross, and then the hook back like that. We can double up on the hook. We can throw the hook into the body and then back to the head. We can also throw the hook from the reverse side. Sometimes if a person is jabbing over top and we slip down underneath, we can hook back in like this and hook back again like that. So the hook is thrown in combinations like that. We're going to both take a right lead and we just move around some and use a few hooking techniques. So if you'll just step in and hook, and how we would do this typically is put on boxing gloves and we'd actually hook into the body. So as I throw my hook out at him, he would put the arm in like this, so I end up hitting, and then he'd hit, and then I'd move back and actually throw the body and hook. And once again, as you see me throw this, it's body and twisting in like that. So I'm really getting a lot of power on that hook. Let me demonstrate. Ian, can I have a boxing glove there? And if I'll position you right over here. I want to kind of demonstrate how this hook punch can be used. Put your left lead forward. Now, as I'm throwing the technique, watch what I'm doing. I'm actually just kind of reaching out and smacking my opponent. You can see what I'm doing there. Just hitting. Against the camera, I'm just kind of coming across like that as I throw the technique. But I'm getting my power, not so much from my arm hitting like that, it's almost slapping, but rather my hip and my shoulder moving in. Now, the closer you are into the target, the easier it becomes to throw the hip in. But unfortunately, a lot of times your opponent won't be that close and you want to throw that hook. So we're just kind of reaching out and hitting like that. Now notice that I'm trying not to arc out too far. That becomes very telegraphic. I want to stay straight in and get my power by twisting my hip and shoulder. So I'm just moving and hitting like that. Moving and hitting just with my hook punch. Now, the hook punch can be a very powerful technique for the Jun Fan fighter. The fifth technique that I'd like to show you is the uppercut. The uppercut is used to take the head up. It can be thrown to the body, or it can be to lift the head up. The uppercut typically works like this. It's oftentimes thrown from the reverse side. So if we have the right lead out in front, the left hand would come in front, just like we turn that left cross. Body comes in front, and then you're simply punching up. But obviously, that's not going to give you much power. So we have to drop the body weight and lift. Drop the body weight, lift. The knees straighten out just a little. The hip comes up as you start the technique. As you lift, and you're going to pull up like this. Now, what's very good is if you can lift with your uppercut, and then once you've lifted the head up, follow back with your hook. So 1, 2 would be the technique. You can also throw the uppercut off the forward side. And throwing the uppercut off the forward side, we simply throw the hand out and up. A lot of times people will throw what we sometimes refer in sport karate as the upset punch. The punch goes straight out, and they call that an upper type of punch. Or we can punch it straight up like the typical boxer. So for the uppercut, we want to emphasize the body lifting, punching up, and in this case, if you come off the reverse side, you have to twist the hips in and lift up like that, like this. In combination, we throw 1, 2. You want to make sure that your hands don't drop down as you begin throwing the uppercut. Simply up and back, and follow that direct line as you're throwing the technique. Keeping the chin down, the shoulder comes up for your protection as we're throwing the uppercut. after you have the general direction of the uppercut, it's important to put on some gloves, get some focus pads, and try the techniques out. You just don't know how they work until you actually make some contact. Ian, I'll do the hitting this time. You come right over here. These are just kind of bag gloves. They're 12 ounce, and they're fairly light as far as the hitting is concerned. If I were going to do actual sparring, of course, I want to wrap the hands, but right now I'm just demonstrating some focus pad techniques. Okay, now for the uppercut, typically you'll have your coach stand in front of you like this. It'll be about chin level. You're just going to lift up like that. You'll have a tendency to want to overextend the technique. Come way down here and throw the punch. Okay, so you want to kind of discipline yourself to lift with the hips and throw the punch. Sometimes you might want to throw the punch straight up. Sometimes you might want to turn the punch around like that. Make sure that that arm stays in front for your protection. Okay, so I'm just going to throw a couple uppercuts. I just lift and hit, just like that. Lift and hit. And I'm going to try not to come too far down as I throw the uppercut. If I want to throw the forward uppercut, again, I just lift it up like that as I'm throwing the techniques here. Now, let me finish up here and just go ahead and throw a series of techniques for you. We'll start off with just a jab here. So I'm just stepping out and throwing my jab. I want to make sure that my hand comes straight back to the body as I throw that jab. It might also work in a hook. A hook will position just out like that. Just come across and hook. Sometimes I might want to throw a jab and hook combination. When I do that, I want to get them about in right angles like that. So I go 1, 2. And as I'm moving 1, 2 with my hook. 1, 2 like that. Another good combination that I like to use when I'm using the focus pad is just a jab cross combination. Put this hand down. I'll punch out 1, 2 like that. 1, 2 like that. 1, 2. I want to try to keep my chin down as I'm punching. Now notice that when I throw my jab, I've moved the target back, and I will have to compensate by stepping in a little bit closer. Okay, so I'll punch 1 and 2 and step in. This time I'll try a combination of 3. I'll throw the 1, the jab, the 2, the cross, the 3, the hook. Put them a little bit closer together. And from a moving position, okay. Now if I add the uppercut to this sequence, I might want to use an uppercut hook. Remember that if I can get my opponent to lift the head, then I can get a very powerful hooking punch. So in this case, we'll put it up just like that. I'll throw an uppercut, hook combination. Okay. So a lot of times if I'm moving around with my coach, I'll have them move around, hold the focus pads down, and then put them up one at a time so that the coach, in effect, tells me what to do for the techniques. But it's important that you put on some gloves, you get out with some focus pads, and you move around using this series of techniques. I'll just go ahead and throw some more. A lot of people would watch these 5 kicking techniques and 5 punching techniques and say, is that all there is? Well, it is and it isn't. Remember, for each of those techniques, there are an infinite number of ways in which we can reproduce them. That is to say, using no way as way, again, refers to no single way as the only way you can perform the technique. Just as we saw, the hook punch could be formed in close and a wider arc like this. The back fist can have the wider arc or in tight like that. You have to find out what works best for you, because ultimately my system, my production of the Jeet Kune Do principles might not be exactly the way you're going to perform it. You have to find out what you're strong at and focus on those specific techniques. Now, in this next tape, we're going to look at the strategy of Jeet Kune Do, the plan. What is your plan? What do you intend to do when you get out there to spar, or you're in a self-defense situation where you have to defend yourself? Are you going to be the grappler, the kicker, the puncher? Are you going to put all the techniques together? This first tape in the series was to give you the fundamental techniques. And so in the next tape, we're going to look at the strategy on how to actually apply these techniques, both in full contact fighting and in self-defense. But ultimately, it's up to you to glove up, get a partner, and get out and try the techniques. I hope you've enjoyed this first in the series of Jeet Kune Do scientific street fighting. Now, Ian, let's do a little practice here. Give me a left lead for this. Okay, you're working.